أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا وسندنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Our series, which is a letter of a kind word to those who reject Sufism by Sheikh Ahmed bin Mustafa Al-Alawi. And so our discussion for today, taken from the letter of a kind word, will be on the literary works in defense of the Tasawwuf, of course presenting the views of classical and contemporary scholars on the subject of the Tasawwuf. And of course also the Shaykh Al-Alawi's methodology of ijtihad and his approach as a mujtahid fil masail on the validity of tasawwuf. To begin with, in today's topic, we go back to the authentic classical scholars and pioneers of tasawwuf. And in my research, I discovered that the Shaykh Al-Alawi, his thoughts reflects those of the early Sufi writers like Abu Nasr al-Sarraj al-Tusi and Abu Talib al-Makki and al-Sulami, which was followed by the work of Imam al-Qushayri, and the latter's work, that is Imam Qushayri, is considered the culmination of early Sufi literature. And his famous book Ar-Risala is the most important compendium of the principles and the terminology of Sufism. As-Sarraj considers the Gabriel Hadith, that is the Hadith Qudsi, as the fountainhead for explaining the exoteric and the esoteric dimensions of Islam. He also portrays the Sufis as being those scholars who apply the injunctions of the Quran and the Sunnah, both exoterically and esoterically. Exoterically in the form of the law, the Sharia, and esoterically in the form of the purification of the self. Although the practicing of the law also contributes to the purification of the self through acts of worship, of ibadah, like fasting, salah, the hajj, and so forth, however, it is the sincerity, the sidq of this worship that is the domain of Sufism. So Imam al-Qushayri in his book Ar-Risala al-Qushayriya writes in defense of Sufism. He explains the principles of Sufism and its origin within the Quran and the Sunnah. His main purpose was to clarify Sufism for those who blindly oppose it without knowing the reality of its principles. And he also makes clear the errors which have appeared from the pseudo-Sufis and addresses the shatahat of the Gnostics, the shatahat which are ecstatic expressions in their state, their specific state of annihilation of fana, and their spiritual state, what they call of drunkenness. And Al-Qushayri reminds us that blind opposition to the doctrine is a problem that exists with every school of thought and with every doctrine. Al-Qushayri also intended to make people understand that the Sufis are following one and the same truth, and that the true people of this path follow the method of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have not deviated from it, not even one iota. They are upon the path of the pious ancestors, that is of the Salaf, in their faith, their belief, and in their conduct. He also addresses the people of Sufism, explaining to them the true path and the deviation and falsehood that has entered it. He shows them the right path so that they do not go astray nor be led astray. And of course, one of the greatest medieval scholars of all time who defended Islam as the spiritual path of who defended Sufism as the spiritual path of Islam is the famous Imam Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali, his major contribution lies in religion, philosophy, and in Sufism. And Ghazali also encountered in his time a number of Muslim philosophers who had been following and developing several viewpoints of Greek philosophy which had led to conflict with several Islamic teachings. And he also found that the movement of Sufism was being tainted by charlatans. Based on his unquestionable scholarship and his personal mystical experience, Al-Ghazali sought to rectify these trends both in philosophy and in Sufism. So he clarified Sufism and re-established the authority of the orthodox Sunni perspective. He stressed the importance of genuine Sufism, which he maintained was the path to attain to the absolute truth, which is the Hakika, and his acceptance of Sufism as a scholar whose research was profoundly extensive, as demonstrated in his books, stands as testament to the validity of the Sufi path as a means of the realization of al-ihsan, which is excellence of worship. Al-Ghazali's acceptance of Sufism came after his extensive study and research of the doctrines of theology and of philosophy and fiqh, and these were not able to satisfy his desire for the ultimate truth. As he says about himself, he says, when I had finished my examination of these doctrines, I applied myself then to the study of Sufism. I saw that in order to understand thoroughly, one must combine theory with practice. That is the soul. The aim which the Sufis set before them is as follows. First, to free the soul from the tyrannical yoke of passion, of shahawat, to deliver it from its wrong inclinations and its evil instincts, in order that in the purified heart there should only remain room for Allah and for the invocation of His holy name. I saw that Sufism consists in experiences, that is dhawqi, rather than in definitions, and that which I was lacking belonged to the domain not of instruction but of ecstasy, of tawajud and initiation. And this was, of course, what I have mentioned, recorded in one of the books of Imam Al-Ghazali. Another aspect of today's discussion, taken from the letter of a kind word, is ijtihad, the tool of ijtihad, dealing with revealed text and the connection between tasawwuf or Sufism and the principle of ijtihad to determine whether Sufism is as a result of ijtihad rather than a bid'ah or an innovation. So one of the topics that I had mentioned in my thesis is ijtihad, a methodology for dealing with the revealed text. And the Arabic word for ijtihad literally means an effort or an exercise to arrive at one's own judgment. And in its wider sense, it means the use of human reason in the elaboration and explanation of the Sharia law. Ijtihad, therefore, is an exercise of one's reason to arrive at a logical conclusion on a legal issue done by the jurists to indicate the effectiveness of a legal precept in Islam. And according to another writer, Kamali, ijtihad is the most important source of Islamic law next to the Quran and the Sunnah. The main difference between ijtihad and the revealed sources of the law lies in the fact that ijtihad is a continuous process. Ijtihad is a continuous process of development, whereas the divine revelation and prophetic legislation discontinued upon the demise of the Prophet ﷺ. So in this sense, ijtihad continues to be the main instrument of interpreting the divine message and relating it to the changing conditions of the Muslim community in its aspirations to attain justice, salvation and truth. Kamali also mentions, and he speaks on the scope of ijtihad and says that the majority of ulama have held the view that once a person has fulfilled the necessary conditions of ijtihad, he is qualified to practice it in all areas of the Sharia. And in modern times, in view of the sheer bulk of information and the more rapid pace of its growth, specialization in any major area of knowledge would seem to hold the key to originality and creative ijtihad. So the broad scope and divisibility of ijtihad would thus seem to be in great harmony with the conditions of research in modern times. The classification of the mujtahideen, they're also known as the legal experts, into various categories such as mujtahideen specializing in a particular school of thought or on particular issues or masail, takes for granted the idea that ijtihad is divisible and it is not restricted to a specific scholar. So ijtihad is validated by the Quran, the Sunnah, and the dictates of reason, of the aql. Of the first two, that is to say, the Quran and the Sunnah is more specific in validating ijtihad, and the prophetic narration reported by Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, as Al-Ghazali points out, provides a clear authority for ijtihad. It is reported that the Prophet ﷺ asked Mu'adh upon the latter's departure, upon his departure as judge to Yemen, questions in answer to which Mu'adh told the Prophet ﷺ that he would resort to his own ijtihad in the event that he failed to find guidance in the Quran and the Sunnah. And the Prophet ﷺ was pleased with this reply. And of course, this is cited by Abu Dawud and by Hassan. In the light of what we have discussed on the matter of ijtihad, with its meanings, its definitions, and the validity, its validity in the realm of Islamic law, I would now like to give a practical demonstration of Shaykh Al-Alawi's application of ijtihad regarding a certain verse in the Quran. Now, this was in response to a particular statement or in a letter addressed to the Shaykh from some exoteric scholar and jurist who used this verse as proof that nothing can be added to the religion, for anything added to it would be considered an innovation. And this is the ayah, this is the verse that he quotes as a proof, as a dalil, in which Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. Today, says Allah, I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you, and I am pleased with Islam as your religion. So, after a brief introduction, the Shaykh Al-Alwi responded with a detailed answer, saying, to this person, I see myself under obligation, dear brother, with the mentioning of a matter which you always refer to in your writings of other contemporary authors, and something you have also mentioned in your latest book, by way of attacking the innovations, that is to say the new practices, the bid'ah of the Sufis, which in your view is foreign to Islam. And your greatest support in this is the verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, which we have just mentioned, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum, this day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you. And so your implication with this is that whatever was not considered religion at that time cannot be considered as part of the religion thereafter. This is all very well as a way of rejecting all the new practices of the Sufis, such as their practice of prescribed adhkar, as we know, and other things. But it is far-fetched for us to see that as correct, except, of course, if you stem out all the ijtihadat, all the legal judgments of the mujtahidun, that is to say the jurists and the fuqaha, and the statements of the legal scholars of the, that is to say of the ulama. And that would mean doing away with all the religious laws deduced by means of ijtihad, by means of this scholarly reasoning, and judging them as alien to the religion. And the ruling on it would be that it is not of the religion because it only came after the perfection of the religion and the completion of Allah's favor upon the Muslims, according to the explicit understanding of the verse. And there is no doubt that this article of yours, says the Shaykh, has brought about a belief and an opinion which not even a deviant sect of Islam would profess, let alone the orthodox people who follow the adhered sunnah to which you do belong, I presume. And if we were to take a look at what the Sufis have established of appointed adhkar, for example, and the stipulated numbers in the adhkar, and other things which you have rejected, and then we look at what the mujtahidun, that is to say the jurists, the fuqaha, what they have established of rules and laws which they have declared things as lawful, halal, or unlawful, haram, obligatory, wajib, and nadab, which is recommended, then they have innovated more laws than can be listed. And they did all of this after the religion was perfected and the favor completed, meaning after the revelation of this verse. So what do you say, O Honorable Shaykh, regarding all of that? Will you say that the Ummah since the time of the Mujtahidun till our time have worshipped Allah with the deen other than the deen revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which ends with the words, today I have perfected for you your religion, al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum? And in addition to this, the matter does not stop at this point. No, all this equally applies to the laws derived from the statements of the companions and the second generation, the Sahaba, and of course the Tabi'un, those who came after them, and even the recorded acts of the four rightly guided Khalifs laid down in writing, since all of it only came after the revelation of this noble verse. And surely you are not unaware, dear Shaykh, of the situations that arose for the first time in the time of the Caliphs. Did it not come to your ears that the praying of Taraweeh in congregation in Jama'ah in the mosque was not established until the reign and the Khilafat of Sayyidina Umar through his instruction, while the situation of Taraweeh in the time of the Prophet ﷺ was different to that. And the utterance of 3 divorces simultaneously was counted only as one during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and during the Khilafat of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and in a part of Umar's Khilafat it was considered as one talaq, that is one divorce. And then it became apparent in the last part of his Khilafat that it was considered as 3 utterances, categorical. This was shaped in his opinion, that is to say, the opinion of Sayyidina Umar, and the companions all agreed with him on that. And look, it is now still the common practice, subhanAllah. And the legal punishment for the one who consumed wine, khamr, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and during the Khilafat of Abu Bakr was confined to 40 lashes, 40 strokes. And then Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu increased it to 80 strokes or 80 lashes. And it has thus become the common practice. And you can compare the rest of events with that. And the situation is that all of this occurred after the revelation of the ayah, or the aforementioned ayah, the ayah that we have mentioned, this noble verse, Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum. So, is it possible for you to say that all of that does not belong to religion? Certainly not. You would not say such a thing, nor would any other Muslim. And I think you are aware that the matter does not stop at this point either, for it must apply also to all the rulings derived from the prophetic hadiths, the hadith which came only after this verse was revealed. So one consider, yes, there's the ayah, and so after that there were more hadith that were recorded. That is to say, after the perfection of the religion and the completion of the favor. Since the ahadith are not different to anything else as far as the literal import of the verse goes. Now, if we take the view that all the ahadith that came after that verse, after the revelation of that verse, may not be used as evidence, we would make a dead letter of all the ahadith, for which we have no certain date, and this is true of more than a few hadiths. Lest we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a religion other than that completed religion of which he said, today I have perfected for you your religion, Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum. Though the narrators of hadith in most cases never gave anything to indicate the date of a hadith. Now, there is no doubt that to assert such a thing would cause a calamity for us and for all the Muslims, as you must know. So you might believe that the matter would stop here, but I fear that I must mention to you what is even greater than this. So I say, it is imperative, it is necessary on that view and belief to extract some of the divine laws with specific Quranic verses, whilst considering that it is not of the religion. But here is some clarification which is necessary for you to pause at, even for a little while, until you will perceive and obtain the confirmation of the hadith and what its sequence leads to. Imam As-Suyuti mentions in his book Al-Itqan in the following text, saying, among the unsolved issues or problems in is the verse Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. Today I have perfected for you your religion. It was revealed on the day of Arafat in the year of the farewell pilgrimage, and its external or its literal meaning refers to all the obligations, the injunctions and laws before it. And there is a group who have permitted that whilst it is narrated that the verse of riba, of usury, and of kalala, which is inheritance of the grandfather, were revealed only after that, Ibn Jarir finds that to be a problem. And he said it is more appropriate to interpret the verse as he perfected their religion by setting them up in the holy city and removing the idolaters from it. And the evidential example is that it is necessary to extract these laws obtained from this verse away from the sphere of religion. But by God, it is very remote that a Muslim should have a belief of this kind. And it is for this reason that the commentators, the mufassirun of the Quran, have interpreted this verse. They have interpreted this verse different to the interpretation of the writers of our time. And I see the best interpretation necessary for this is that what is meant by the perfection of the religion are its essential principles and laws. As for that which lies beyond its branches, we do not see it as inclusive of the law of the hukum, and you too, I suppose, don't see it as such, dear Shaykh, except by means of the branches returning to their roots, because that is considered to be concealed, like the concealment of the palm tree in the seed pip. May Allah inspire me and to you with knowledge of which the foundation is taqwa, Allah consciousness. And this is what we have understood of the religion and the meaning of its perfection and the completion of His favor upon its people. So if it has any station or position with you, then this is it. Otherwise, you guide us to an understanding that is higher and greater than this, and your reward is with Allah. So be confident and be certain, O Shaykh, because your previous understanding of the noble verse holds no substance, neither is it favorable to what you believe. I do not say to you that you are confident about what you believe, in as much as that your statement has emanated from examination and devotion, or that you have based it on proof and evidence. My conviction about you is that you only acted upon your knowledge with a lack of verification, and what assisted you in that is your self-confidence regarding your knowledgeable status. And the situation of us and of yourself in reality is the saying which says, عَرَفْتَ شَيْئًا وَغَابَتْ عَنْكَ أَشْيَاءُ. You may have knowledge of something, yet while the knowledge of many other things have become hidden from you. You are ignorant of many, many other things. And what is more appropriate for us in our case, before everything else, is to acknowledge the shortcomings within ourselves. This is about what we know, and about what we do not know is even more becoming. Therefore, the obligation of advice, of nasiha, requires that we repeat to you what has appeared in the Risala al-Khurabiyya, when the author says it is necessary for the faqih, the jurist, or the mujtahid, the faqih, to be kind and gentle, and he should know his position, his standing in the religion, and he should not extend his empty hand to what is beyond his limit in the ranks of divine knowledge and the godly states, until he will taste what the great men have tasted. May Allah not deprive us and you from the fresh, cool water of their knowledge. Lastly, I beseech you, my brother, not to send any text as proof before contemplating and reflecting on it, because it is not a simple matter. What has preceded is what I chose for myself, and it is what I have chosen for you. Subhanallah. Wassalam. That was the long response and the answer that the Shaykh Al-Alwi gave to this person. And the Shaykh Al-Alwi, in his answer to the claim made by this questioner about this specific ayah that we've mentioned, as we have heard, strikes the reader with a flow of eloquence from the Shaykh, and his application of ijtihad and intellectual reasoning that can barely be refuted by any intelligent, sincere seeker of truth. And of course, one of the great signs of the Gnostics is their quality of humility and abasement. And the letter of the kind word is filled with this kind of answer. And inshallah, next week we will hopefully speak about the Shaykh Al-Alwi's explanation of bid'ah, of innovation, and the perception of the fuqaha and of the ulama of madhahib on this mas'ala. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin.